Hey everybody, Jordan here, back with 9 to 5 Toys. Turtle Beach is out with its first accessory for its sim racing unit. This is the VelocityOne Multi-Shift. And much like its base sim racing package, the Multi-Shift is a multi-purpose shifter that can be set up as an H pattern, sequential, and a handbrake. It can even be configured for up to 14 gears with a high-low button on here. But like I found in my VelocityOne race review, is it trying to do too much? Well, let's dive in and check it out. So today we are just going to be driving around in Forza Horizon 5. I honestly feel like this is one of the best use cases for an H-pattern shifter. Like, this isn't something that I would normally use in Forza Motorsport, which is where I do most of my sim racing because I always have paddles. I'm using a sequential gearbox with the race transmission upgrade, but when you have an H-pattern and a manual transmission, it can be kind of fun just to go out and cruise. So that's what we're doing here in Forza Horizon 5. You know, until Assetto Corsa Evo has the Nürburgring area actually put in there, this is kind of a good example of what you can do just to cruise in here. So let's take a little mountain path. Have some fun going up this rough road. Now, Turtle Beach is taking an interesting approach with the VelocityOne Multi-Shift. Much like the VelocityOne Race, which is the wheelbase, the pedals, and the wheel itself, which we have a full review of, you can check that up out here in the corner. This is a multi-purpose thing, you know, meant to kind of cover a bunch of different scenarios and use cases. Obviously, it is an H-pattern shifter like what we are using here, but it can also be set up for sequential. So if you're playing a rally title or, you know, setting things up for drifting, you can kind of switch between that and put it in sequential mode. It also has a handbrake mode. You can't do both, you know, shifting and handbraking right exactly at the same time because that is a separate button, but it is kind of nice to have the option just to have something else built in there. And talking about price, this is a $130 unit. But, you know, the benefit of that is that you're kind of getting 3 different functionalities all built into one. You know, I do think that it is best suited as a H-pattern shifter over a sequential, and we'll talk more about that later on. I'll tell you why. But, you know, to have a kind of all-in-one unit that's ready for you to do those 2 or 3 different modes right out of the box is pretty cool. So, there are definitely some reasons I think that you might be interested in getting this. Of course, the VelocityOne Race, which we're not using here, we're using a Moza gear because I'm reviewing another wheel on my Moza setup. With the VelocityOne Race, it obviously does support Xbox as well, and so that means that the Multi-Shift also works on Xbox or PC. I just have it plugged directly into my PC right now, and it's working totally fine here, playing Horizon 5, of course. So that is another added benefit. You know, there aren't a ton of options that are going to work with Xbox as well because you have that very, you know, dedicated functionality that Microsoft kind of makes it a little more limited as to what peripherals can actually work on Xbox. So I mentioned that $130. That's also in comparison to the Moza, just their sequential shifter, which is also $130. It does one thing, but it does it very, very well. Like, if you are just looking for a sequential shifter, I can't recommend the Moza highly enough. It is a very high quality product. Once again, you can check out the video up here in the corner if you want to see a little bit more about that. Of course, you know, compatibility on Xbox gets a little bit harder with the Moza as well. So the VelocityOne Multi-Shift can be set up on a desk if you have, you know, the race wheel set up on a desk as well, or you can mount it to a full-blown sim rig like we have set up here. Obviously, I think you will have a better experience in a sim rig because you can typically adjust where that is positioned, so you get a little bit better ergonomics. But if you're on a tight budget or in a tight space, you don't have room for a full-blown rig, it's nice to have the desk support. Now, originally, when I was using this, I had it tested on the VelocityOne Race, which I had set up on the Next Level Racing GT Racer, but I was having some issues with AC Evo and getting that set up. You know, obviously AC Evo's a little bit newer. I'm not sure what support is like for all wheelbases, so I ended up going back to my Moza gear. I also have another review coming out soon with a Moza wheel. Make sure you're subscribed. And so that's why I ended up setting this up with the Moza setup here on my GT Omega Titan cockpit. This is basically the setup that I use for 90% of the time. I just jumped to a different area because we're getting trolled by that car. So for $130, the VelocityOne Multi-Shift is, pretty high quality, about as much as you would expect. There's a nice leather boot on here that, protects from any debris falling in. And it comes with 2 different shafts on here. One is labeled, 1 through 7 with a reverse for the H pattern. Then there's also another one that has a knob that's labeled for the sequential shifter, and it's obviously a little bit taller as well. So great to have that functionality built in there. I've seen people mod the Logitech H pattern to turn it into a sequential shifter with like rubber bands. And so, the fact that you have a little bit more intentionality and, the ability to add a longer shaft on there is a nice feature that makes it better and easier for that. On the right side, you'll see a switch that goes between the H pattern and sequential modes. And behind the boot on top, there are buttons for high and low mode, as well as a button for the handbrake. And, from my testing and use, I've been having a blast with this H pattern shifter. Like I said, most of my racing is in Forza Motorsport these days, and I don't use an H pattern for that. I always have a race transmission, and so I'm using the paddles. But I forgot, how much fun it is just to have a little H pattern shifter and, just kind of go through the gears, and especially driving around on like Forza Horizon 5. I haven't done this in a while, so it's been fun to jump back in and do that. Likewise, I've also been using this quite a bit in Assetto Corsa Evo. I've been really enjoying it with the Abarth in a group on Discord. We're doing our own little, time attack hot lap challenge to see how fast we could get around one of the layouts of Suzuka. And so it was fun, trying to use the H pattern and trying to heel toe shift, which I'm terrible at and need to practice a lot. Luckily, that's not really an issue in Forza Horizon 5. You can just dump it and everything's fine. It auto matches for you automatically. But it makes me really excited for the upcoming AC Evo updates, where we have the open world roaming capabilities going around the Nürburgring. I mean, that's just going to be a lot of fun. But like I said, it's just been a blast to hop in here, and everything works well. I never feel like I'm missing gears. Everything's nicely labeled and easy to find within the actual gearbox. And I never really noticed it in use, but when you are just moving through the gears, you can kind of feel a little bit of like a grind if you push the gear all the way to the right, especially if you're getting ready to go into 7th or into reverse and you don't quite get there, you can kind of feel it's grinding a little bit and kind of feels like it's rubbing on something, not in the best way. Over on the left side, you never notice that at all. Through any of the other gears, I haven't noticed it either. But when you push down and go to the side, you can kind of feel it grinding. If you're trying to get to 5th and 6th, you can kind of feel it grinding as well. So that hasn't given any issues, like I said, in just, using it normally. But I've only had this, for what, a month, a few weeks. And so it's hard to know what the longevity is going to be like with that. All right, so now let's get it set up in sequential mode, and things aren't quite as impressive there. So to get it in sequential, all I'm going to do is remove the shifter, and I'm going to put on the, let's see if we can get that on there. The sequential mode just has the plus and minus, and we'll get it mounted in here. Just, easily screws into the boot, and you can change the top if you feel like things aren't lined up very well, or you can switch it. I like to have plus back and then minus forward, but you might like to have it the other way, where if you shift up, you push forward, and if you shift down, you push back. So then the other step is just to flip the switch on the right, and then we are in sequential mode. So here in sequential mode, I have it set up so if I pull back, it goes up a gear. Or you push forward to go down a gear. And like I said, it works fine, it works, but I feel like I'm spoiled from having the Moza shifter, because the Moza is just absolutely incredible. With the Moza, it feels like an actual physical sequential shifter where you're slamming it through gears. It's loud, it has this incredible tactile feedback, and you don't get all of that with the VelocityOne Multi-Shift. Now, I don't think that's its number one purpose. Its number one purpose is kind of to be the all-in-one thing. So focusing on H pattern, but it has a sequential mode, which is nice. And then for handbrake, you can actually just push the handbrake button here, and if you pull it, it will activate the handbrake if you have it properly mapped. We'll see. I can go to the software here, VelocityOne, so you can see when I push handbrake, it pops over to the handbrake mode. So that's how it goes back and forth. So, if you feel like you need to use that for a handbrake, you can just hit the green button and it goes into that mode. So I don't think that I would buy it for the sequential functionality, but if you're looking for an H pattern and you've thought about maybe doing some racing modes where you would want a sequential shifter as well, it's nice to have the ability to just be able to swap between those two. So very easy to do. So we're gonna swap back to the H pattern because that is my preferred way of using this. Just like with the VelocityOne race wheel that we've reviewed, I'm glad that Turtle Beach is in this space. I'm glad there's another competitor offering, a pretty incredible all-in-one package. I don't think that that package is necessary for everybody. If you're just looking to get into sim racing, there are some more affordable ways, from even Logitech with the G923 or Moza with some of their gear. Always depends on what platform you're playing on as well. But I'm just glad that there's someone else who's kind of innovating and doing something different here. You can walk into a store and see a package that has kind of everything you need, with pedals, a direct drive wheelbase, you got your wheel, you've even got a dash on it. And then if you need a shifter, be it H pattern or sequential, you can pick this up and plug it right into it and it works totally fine. So it's nice that Turtle Beach has these offerings available. Is it going to be the highest quality thing for every certain scenario? No, I don't think so. Like I said, I much prefer the Moza shifter if you're just doing sequential shifting. But if you need something that has the ability to do both, this isn't a bad unit. Like I said, it has 7 gears built into it with the reverse, but you can also do the high-low, so you can get up to 14 gears. So if you're doing, some truck driving simulation and want a few more gears, this could be a good option for that. So there are some really cool use cases for this unit from Turtle Beach. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend it for the sequential shifting mode, but it's nice to have the addition if you've been looking for an H shifter and, want to have that option as well. So that's it for this look at the Turtle Beach VelocityOne Multi-Shift. Like I said, doing this review and hooking up an H pattern and just kind of going through the gears and driving around has been a lot of fun. It's something that I don't do nearly enough on here. So let me know what you think about the VelocityOne Multi-Shift, and where would you use this? What games would you be playing where you could use something like this? Let me know down in the comments, and make sure you are subscribed because we will have a couple other reviews coming out here pretty soon with some sim racing gear, mainly a Moza wheel. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. This is Jordan with 9to5 Toys.